So our next speaker is Dalia Khalil, and Dr. Khalil is going to be talking about MENA, refugee and immigrant mental health and wellness. And I'm going to hand it right over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone, and thank you very much, Madiha. I am Dalia Khalil. I'm an assistant professor at the College of Nursing at Wayne State University, and I will be talking about my work in general. So I'm not going to go into specific things, not to take a long time. Basically, I'll talk about mental health and wellness among mother, father, infant triads. Next slide. So in 2017, I earned my PhD in the dual title program of infant mental health and nursing. And in my work, generally, I focus on the effect of parental psychosocial states on infants' development and children's behavioral outcomes, and specifically among immigrant and refugee Arab American families. Among the psychosocial stressors, I usually look at different stressors, anxiety and depression, as well as PTSD. Next slide. So in 2017, my dissertation title was about postpartum depression and acculturation among U.S. immigrant women of Arabic descent. And in this study, I focused only on postpartum women because there were no studies about postpartum depression. And I found among Arab American immigrant women, 35% of the sample expressed high levels of postpartum depression. And this was not reported before. In my study, we found that a culture of stress, lack of social support predicted postpartum depression, while we controlled for education, gestational age, and antenatal anxiety. Next, please. So when I started working at Wayne State University as an assistant professor, I started to expand my work. So in 2018, we started a new study, and it was a pilot feasibility study. We looked at effects of parental psychological distress factors on infant stress and development among Arab American immigrants and refugees. So my work is basically focusing on, like at the beginning, I looked at women after birth, but then I expanded my work into infants, including fathers as well. So in this study, it was a cross-sectional study. We recruited 50 families. We included mother, father, infant triads, and we examined different variables. So we looked at acculturative stress, post-traumatic stress, social support, and depression among both parents. And then from the infants, we measured infant stress by using the salivary telomere length measurement to measure chronic effects of stress on the cellular level for infants, as well as the hair cortisol level for infants. And by the way, we did collect telomere data also for both parents in order to correlate mothers, father, infants together. And also we asked both parents about infants' development. So this was more like a subjective measure of infants' development in order to understand the correlations between all of these stressors on infants' outcomes. Next, please. So that study gave us preliminary data in order to apply for a bigger study. And this bigger study is an R3. So this study got funded in November of 2020, and it's a federal funded study, NIH, with the support of the NICHD, which is the National Institute of Child Health and Development. This is an R3. That means it's 2 years. It's kind of a small grant, but that was something great to get to that level, having a federal funded study for immigrant and refugee Arab American families. So we examined family stress, co-parenting, and infant development here. In this study, I collaborated with a great team from different universities and different departments, for example, from psychology, School of Medicine, as well as School of Nursing. In this study, this is a current study that we're doing right now, and we are recruiting immigrant Arab American as well as refugees. Our goal is to get 120 families or 120 triads. So far, we are at 72 triads, which is really good. Those families, they had to be migrants from Arab countries within the last 10 years, and they have to have a baby within the age of 6 and 24 months old. So we do examine different variables among mothers and fathers. So among parents, we look at stress and resources in terms of alternative stress, post-traumatic stress, perceived stress, as well as resources such as the relationship between the couples. We look at social support as also a resource. We collect also biological data. We collect hair cortisol from both mothers and infants, and we collect telomere length data from the triads in order to look at relationships between all of them all. And we assess the infant development using an objective measure, which is the Bailey assessment of baby's development. So in this study, it will help us understand more relationships in order to inform our future work. Next slide, please. And then in 2021, I collaborated with our colleague in the School of Medicine, Dr. Javanbakht, who will just talk about his work a little bit after me. So this study was a collaboration with his R01 funded study. And this part of the study will focus on parent relationship with children. So this got funded by the Brain Behavioral Research Foundation, and it's a young investigator grant. And the title was to examine the psychobiological factors affecting mental health among immigrant and refugee parents and children. So we will recruit, and this is also in progress. We are recruiting 2 groups of children, immigrant children, as well as refugee children. And we want to examine different variables related to psychosocial stressors among parents, psychological outcomes in children, such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, as well as behavioral outcomes. So we're going to use some questionnaires to ask the parents about their children's behaviors, and then we're going to ask children about their perception of their own behavior. And this study also, we will collect also biological data about their telomere length in order to understand how much stress and depression might affect the telomere length on the long run. Telomere length, just quickly, it's the endings of your chromosomes, and the telomeres protecting your DNA. So over time, it gets shorter with age, it gets shorter with stress, it gets shorter with different diseases. And previous studies among non-immigrants, they found that chronic stress might shorten telomeres among infants and children, and that can affect their health outcomes in the future. And that's why stress and depression among parents can affect children as from infancy until adulthood. So these studies will give us the baseline on how immigration-related stress would affect infants and children, and how can we propose something helpful in the future for them. And next slide, I guess that's it. I tried to be very brief as much as I can, but I'll be happy to answer questions in the breakout rooms. Thank you very much, everyone.